And now let's move on over to the state of South Carolina, where their state Supreme Court just issued an important ruling on the topic of abortion. Specifically, you had the South Carolina State Supreme Court vote 5-0 unanimously to uphold the state's 6-week abortion ban. This ruling of theirs, it came as a response to a challenge of the law on the books by Planned Parenthood. And this ruling in South Carolina, it actually represents a great microcosm of what's happening throughout the whole country in regards to the topic of abortion. And so let's go through what's happening throughout the whole country through the lens of South Carolina. And to start with, let me just briefly set the stage for you. In 2022, once Roe versus Wade was overturned at the federal level by the U.S. Supreme Court, the question of whether or not abortion was legal was returned back down to the individual states. And different states went in very different directions. Some states moved to ban abortions entirely. Some other states, though, they expanded access to abortion, with some states even going so far as to enshrine the right to an abortion in their state constitution. And so let me put up a map up on your screen, which will show you the abortion laws that are currently on the books throughout the whole country, which is, again, roughly 3 years after Roe versus Wade was overturned. And I will quickly mention two things before I show you the map. One is that we're filming this episode right now, sort of at the end of May 2025, and this map is accurate right now, but it might change in the near future. And then secondly, I do hope if you appreciate content like this, which takes sometimes a long time to compile together, you do smash those like and subscribe buttons so that this video can reach ever more people via the YouTube algorithm. And now, without further ado, let's go through the maps. Before 2022, you had the entire map of the country basically just be one color. All states had abortion legalized due to that Supreme Court decision, which stated basically that there's a constitutional right to privacy, which envelops the right to an abortion. However, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, the map instantly fragmented. Here's what it looks like now. You have states like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and several other states throughout the country where abortion is basically illegal, with very few exceptions. Those few exceptions differ from state to state, but they include things like either danger to the mother's health, pregnancy due to rape or incest, or some type of fetal abnormality that's detected in the womb. But in almost all cases in those particular states, abortion is illegal. Then you have one state, North Dakota, where abortion is legal, but there are no abortion providers within the state. Now, there's a historical reason for why that is. Basically, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, North Dakota had something known as a trigger law, which went right into effect after that Supreme Court decision was overturned. And that law effectively banned almost all abortions in the state. That forced the only abortion clinic in North Dakota to immediately move out of the state. However, since then, that trigger law was actually deemed unconstitutional by a state judge, meaning that in a practical sense, abortions are legal in that state, but there are just no clinics there available. Then moving on, we've got several states where abortion is legal up until the point of cardiac cell activity. These states have what are known as fetal heartbeat laws on the books, making it illegal to perform an abortion after a doctor using an ultrasound can detect a heartbeat. And that usually occurs at the 6-week mark. Then moving along, you have another 2 states which allow abortion up until the 12th week of pregnancy. Utah allows abortions up until the 18th week of pregnancy. Other states allow abortion up until the 22nd week of pregnancy, which is the 5-month mark. Then you have a bunch of other states where abortion is legal up until the point of fetal viability. And that's the point where the baby is believed to be able to survive by itself outside of the mother's womb. Now, it's hard to exactly pin down where that point is, but most people agree it occurs sometime between the 23rd and the 24th week of pregnancy, which then ties into another batch of states that allow abortion up until the 24th week of pregnancy, which is 5.5 months. Then you have Virginia and Massachusetts, which both allow abortions up through the 2nd trimester. And then lastly, you have a significant batch of states that allow abortions at any stage of the pregnancy up until the very end. And so putting all those colors up on the map together, this, as you can see up on your screen, is the current fragmented state of abortion here in America in May of 2025. Which then perfectly brings us back to our main topic of discussion, which is South Carolina. The state law that they have on the books is called the Fetal Heartbeat Protection from Abortion Act. And just like the other states that we mentioned on that map, it says that abortions cannot be performed after an ultrasound can detect, quote, cardiac activity, or the steady and repetitive rhythmic contraction of the fetal heart within the gestational sac. And that cardiac activity begins at a biologically identifiable moment in time, normally when the fetal heart is formed in the gestational sac. And then later on in the text, to give it a bit more of a plain English meaning, they mentioned that this type of cardiac activity usually occurs at roughly the 6-week mark after conception. Now, Planned Parenthood, they filed a lawsuit against the state of South Carolina, arguing that the language in this particular law isn't clear. Specifically, Planned Parenthood was making the argument that there is an ambiguity to the definition of fetal heartbeat, and they quote, urge the court to define it as when the 4 chambers of the heart are formed, which is usually around 17 to 20 weeks, as opposed to the 6 weeks set forth in the ban. Basically, their argument is that the definition of fetal heartbeat within the context of the statute isn't exactly clear. And according to them, meaning according to Planned Parenthood, a better stoppage point would be when the 4 chambers of the baby's heart are formed, which typically happens in the 17 to 20 week range rather than the 6-week mark currently on the law. In their case, it made it all the way up to the state Supreme Court, who just earlier this month ruled against them. Specifically, in a 5-0 decision, meaning a unanimous decision, the court decided to uphold the state's 6-week abortion ban. And what's interesting about this particular ruling is that the justices on the state Supreme Court, they agreed that the medical language in the statute was vague. However, the justices also noted that both the opponents of the law, the people who are against the law, as well as the supporters of the law, both of these two groups, they both believe that this law stops abortion from being legal after the 6-week mark, meaning that everyone involved with this law understood what it meant when it was passed. All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment, I'd like to introduce our longtime sponsor, Patriot Mobile. They are a great company who has for years now bridged the gap for Americans who want great cell service, but who also believe in faith, family, and freedom. And so here's a question. Have you switched to Patriot Mobile yet? And if not, well, consider doing so. You'll get exceptional nationwide coverage because unlike most other cell phone service providers, Patriot Mobile utilizes all 3 major U.S. networks. And so by switching today, you'll not only be working with a company that actually supports your values, but you will not be sacrificing quality or service. They can even add 2 numbers on 2 different networks on one single phone. So it's like carrying 2 phones in one if you need that type of thing. They have unlimited data plans, they have mobile hotspots, they have international roaming, they have internet on the go devices, internet backup. Also, switching is super easy. You can keep your phone, you can keep your number, or you can upgrade. Either way, their customer service team is based 100% in the US, and so it's easy. You can get up and running in minutes. And best of all, switching to Patriot Mobile supports your values. If you believe in the First and Second Amendments, if you believe in the sanctity of life, in supporting our veterans, well, this is where you belong. And so head on over to patriotmobile.com/Roman or call 972-PATRIOT. You can get a free month of service if you use the promo code Roman. So switch today, go either to patriotmobile.com/Roman or call the number on your screen. I'll also throw everything down into the description box below. And again, if you use promo code Roman, R-O-M-A-N, you can get a free month of service. In writing for the majority of the South Carolina State Supreme Court, you had Justice John Few write the following, quote, not one of the terms of the General Assembly used in the definition, not cardiac activity, nor steady, repetitive, rhythmic, contraction, fetal heart, nor even gestational sac is a precise medically defined term. However, the court has counted at least 60 separate instances during the 2023 legislative session in which a member of the House or Senate referred to the 2023 Act as a 6-week ban on abortion. We could find not one instance during the entire 2023 legislative session in which anyone connected in any way to the General Assembly framed the act as banning abortion after approximately 9 weeks. While we do not frame our holding today in the shorthand terms of a number of weeks, the biologically identifiable moment in time we hold is the fetal heartbeat under the 2023 Act occurs in most instances at approximately 6 weeks of pregnancy. And as such, Planned Parenthood lost the case, which, as you could imagine, they were not thrilled with. Shortly after this ruling was handed down, you had the CEO of Planned Parenthood's South Atlantic chapter release the following statement, quote, justice did not prevail today, and the people of South Carolina are paying the price. People have been forced to carry pregnancies against their will, suffered life-threatening infections, and died as a direct result of this abortion ban. And so that's Planned Parenthood. On the other hand, you had the Republican governor of South Carolina, Mr. Henry McMaster, hailing this decision as, quote, another clear and decisive victory that will ensure the lives of countless unborn children remain protected and that South Carolina continues to lead the charge in defending the sanctity of life. And so there you have it. South Carolina will continue to remain a 6-week abortion ban state into the foreseeable future. If you'd like to read either the state Supreme Court decision, or if you'd like to actually play with an interactive map of the current state of abortion throughout the country, I'll throw those resources down into the description box below if you'd like to dig into the weeds. And all I ask in return is that if you haven't already, please take a quick moment to smash those like and subscribe buttons so that this video can reach ever more people via the YouTube algorithm. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed. Most importantly, stay free.